Hi there, this is Dan Goodstein with the Outsourcing Institute. I'm joined here with Catherine Joe, partner and digital services leader for the financial services practice at PwC, and our gracious host for the Digital Convergence Conference this year. Catherine, great to have you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Really glad to be here.
So, could you briefly give us a little bit of background on your history and your career?
Absolutely. So I grew up as a consultant, career consultant in the past 20 years, and I live in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And I spend almost entire life of mine right now working with the financial services companies. And as you can imagine, financial services companies are very much into the technology world. It's not just a traditional financial servicing addressing financial servicing needs. It's using technologies to find new business models and addressing the traditional financial services needs via very different ways. So I have the benefit of living the sort of bi-coastal life and addressing a lot of the variety of financial services needs using the variety of new emerging tools and technologies and the business models. So it's really glad to be here.
No, great, thank you. So there's a lot of talk and probably overuse of the term digital, right? You had a good definition when we first spoke. So can you share that? And also, I'm interested in your differentiation between digital and digitalization.
Absolutely, it's a great question, and we hear a lot of the folks talk about digital and then digitization. So what's the difference? We actually have a third term that I will introduce once I say that sort of our point of view on what is digital versus digitization. Digital is about the way that the customers or clients are interacting with the financial services providers via the mobile channels, PC channels, and other digital channels. So that's what we see. Digital being in the sales, marketing, and the customer services area, primarily in a customer-facing role digitally. Digitization goes further into the enterprise. It's really about digitizing the way things are done traditionally, manually, right? So you can think about workforce automation. You can think about the straight-through process and automation. And you can think about the e-signature. So basically, it's all those sort of manual, repetitive jobs that are done typically through, human beings that are being digitized in the traditional enterprise. So digital and digitization goes hand in hand, but address the sort of digital address the front office slightly, and digitalization start to really get into the guts of the enterprise, into the middle office and the back office. The third area, which is we see very on top of mind, is called the digital native. So digital native are the sort of the business models and the companies that are built from the get-go on the digital core. If you think about the traditional banks that are built on legacy core that's written on a COBOL programming tool that takes a long time to change. The new digital native companies are built on new core that's written in Java language that can use these programming tools and techniques to reconfigure product and services and pricing and the way you go to market with these things in a very, very agile manner. So that's what we see as a very a big driving force. The digital native players coming into the market, and it's really creating a lot of disruptions.
Yeah, I agree. And so how do you find the move to digital changing the business models of the clients that you're working with?
Yeah, so the changing of the business models come in a variety of ways. And so I would say give you the sort of three ways, three dimensions. One is the traditional revenues, the fees and interest incomes that the banks or financial institutions typically generate are likely to be under attack because of the new digital tools. Traditionally, you charge customer fees based on the friction that's built into the system, and now customers do not expect the friction to exist anymore. So you have no right to charge those fees, right? So there are new competitors provide the same kind of service without friction and for free. So the traditional revenue streams are going away. And then there's an immense, secondly, is immense pressure to reduce the cost, to completely digitize the enterprise. You see a lot of the banks, experimenting with RPA, right? That some of large players have thousands of RPA experiments going on. So that's the sort of the second lever, or sort of the enterprise are pulling in terms of reducing the cost. Thirdly, the fundamental is about the operating model changes. So you talk about the business model change, and the business model change fundamentally, I would say, rely on the operating model. And the operating model have several components. One is because of this whole digital wave, companies are increasingly going from product centric to customer centric. So that entails a bunch of things, from organizationally, from accountability, from go-to-market. A lot of changes can be related to that, from a product to customer-centric org. Secondly is the enterprise are becoming so much more agile, right? All the way from a technology development to go-to-market to decision-making to the way the culture works within any enterprise. All the enterprise have different culture, but the culture is increasingly more agile, right? Agile decision making. The third way is really regarding the digital workforce. So the traditional workforce work in the manual process really need to think about how do they digitize the way things gets done, and what should the human beings focus on versus being automated.
Catherine, let's talk a little bit about banks. I know you spend a great deal of your time working with the banks. There's always a lot of talk about cost save within the financial services community and regulatory compliance management. But with digital, do you see opportunities for them to create additional revenue streams?
Absolutely. So this is actually, I encourage my clients not to think about the cost cutting or regulatory as a pure sort of a cost bottom line items. In fact, they should have a double-edged sword if impact in terms of creating revenue. So let me give you an example. Traditionally, KYC, right? Know your customer is a big item, big ticket item on any company's balance sheet. Yep. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars to do KYC that enables you to onboarding customers smoothly. So you can treat as a cost items as how do I do this and do it correctly, or you can think about how do I digitize the traditional KYC process. There's so much innovation in the KYC, the onboarding and the customer authentication process, where customers traditionally take days or hours, or in complex product weeks to onboard because of name, address don't match. They don't seem to be correct, and it requires a bunch of additional documents to authenticate these customers. These issues are being addressed by digital tools and technologies, so that the customers can be onboarded on a real-time fashion using real-time authentication methods. So that's an area where you're right. So I can automate KYC. Yes, of course, it's a regulatory item, but I'm doing KYC in a very cost-effective manner. At the same time, guess what? I'm actually impacting the customers in such a positive way. Traditionally, Catherine would take 3 days to become a wealth management customer for a certain bank. Now I can become a bank customer for a very complex financial services product in a fraction of seconds, right? Think about how delighted I will be. So that's how you can leverage the sort of the cost benefit, the sort of the traditional regulatory item and done correctly toward your advantage and achieving customer satisfaction, and therefore deeper customer engagement and longer term financial impact.
So that's an interesting example. So we often think of it as an either or, right? So it doesn't have to be, to your point.
It's and, exactly.
So let's talk about technology for a moment. There's a bunch of different digital services that are very quickly coming into the market. Some have been in the market for a while and becoming more mature. What sort of services and technologies do you find your client type of companies they're looking to purchase them from?
So really, I would say that our clients are purchasing, right, or inquiring about technology and digital services in all manners. But as a consultant, I like to impose some sort of structure. So the structure goes sort of horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, you have the online banking platform. There's just so much innovation just on the online digital platform that powers up all the customer interactions. That's one big area. The second area is really regarding the enterprise business middleware layer. There's a traditional middleware. There's a lot of innovation in terms of opening up the API, creating data river, by connecting the sort of the tunnels across the data lakes. So there's a whole lot of enterprise middleware innovation regarding innovation and open API integration. And then the third one is actually may or may not surprise you, but it's sometimes surprising to some of the bankers, is the core banking innovation. Right, the core banking is a it's a rock solid piece of engine you bet your career on that shouldn't go wrong, right? For all the good reasons. But there is actually a lot of innovation in digitizing the core banking area. So those are the horizontal pieces. The vertical pieces are, you look at retail banking versus lending versus wealth management, and the different degree of innovation is all happening there. I sort of overall the themes I'm seeing are two. One is really the how do I put all the pieces together, right? So I described this matrix, the vertical horizontal structure. There's so much innovation happening everywhere in the grid. So how do I, as an enterprise architect or value architect or head of the business or CEO, CFO, putting all those pieces together to achieve end-to-end value chain benefits, to achieve my shareholder, the impact as well as my customer impact. So that's one big piece. And then the second big one is, how do I keep up with the super fast innovation that's happening? Every day there are new fintech companies coming up. So I got to really understand what they are for. Should I be concerned about them? Should I buy or build or partner with them? And what does it do to my existing initiative? So those are the two sort of major themes we're seeing.
I wanted to ask you too about omni-channel. I saw a piece that you guys published recently. So the idea of omni-channel is not new, but how do you see it changing or working going forward in this new digital world?
Yeah, so it's a great topic. So omni-channel is still here, and it's here to stay. But very interestingly, from this year, we just had this survey that you're referring to that came out less than 2 weeks ago that says from 2016 to 2017, the amount of omni-channel, meaning the combination of physical and online channels, the customers that are omni-channel is actually reducing from about 70% to 30%. And that 30% of the customers who are still using omni-channels are the lesser affluent and the older folks. And the people who are switching away from the traditional omni-channels are going, guess what, to omni-digital. So what does omni-digital mean? It means it's a combination of the digital channels. It's the PC, the mobile, and the tablet. And then even more interestingly, what we see from the data is the amount of PC usage has slightly decreased, and the amount of mobile usage has drastically increased. So think about that for a moment. So within the omni-digital area, the mobile first principle is definitely very prominent, and I would encourage all the banks to think about it if not already.
Right. No, interesting. Very interesting. So my last question is, I have a lot of conversations with members these days, and we'll have a lot of these conversations at the Digital Convergence Conference in the fall that you guys are hosting at PwC. Around whether enterprises should buy, build, or partner in order to get work done. I find, in my conversations at least, many clients still prefer to pass the work and the risk onto the outsourcing service provider. Do you disagree, or and if you do, what do you recommend for the vendors that are out there?
So I disagree slightly, meaning. So as we can see it, the sort of the era of automation is here, and it's here to stay, and it's really rapidly changing the way we think about how the work is done. So the traditional outsourcing model of labor arbitrage is no longer gonna work if that's your only value proposition. So the new value proposition gotta be what's the value arbitrage, right? And now you say, what does value mean? Value is the combination of people, process, and technology. So let me give you an example. So everyone talk about RPA. Does RPA means we will completely take out the people components? Absolutely not, right? It will take out all the unnecessary, tedious, repetitive, and manual work that we don't want our human beings to work on. However, for any RPA to work, you really got to think about how to completely end-to-end doing the process reengineering to think about what process should be automated, should still be there and should be automated. And what process should not even be there in the first place, because now we have digital core, and therefore you don't need to have these band-aid solutions, right? That these processes should go away. And what processes should be reimagined, right? This is the tradition, the Airbnb and the Uber, the likes of the example comment. They have reimagined the way how do people go from A to B by leveraging capacities on the road, right? So that's how you think about the value arbitrage. Think about all the sort of the work that needs to be done in an automated way. It's using the the intelligent and right the experienced people to focus on what process should be there and how should I link all the processes to deliver customer employee benefits, and therefore then what tools should enable that, and then you decide where to invest in terms of your outsourcing capability.
So if you are a vendor out there and you're trying to change your business model, be less labor centric, less offshoring centric, and more of a solution provider, any words to the wise, any advice for them out there?
I would say, so think about the 1 foot in today and 1 foot in the future. 1 foot in today, meaning, right, so the outsourcing business is very hard to unwire. So you got to really keep the lights on and keep your clients happy. But the 1 foot in the future means look at where the values are in terms of your clients are driving to, for their stakeholders, and really focus on where you can create the best leverage. So using the RPA example again, I would transform my traditional outsourced workforce from doing entry and repetitive work into how should I look at the process reengineering? How should I really ensure the change management and the process end-to-end process thinking is in place? So that requires the sort of the change and the transformation of your workforce. And sometimes you can migrate existing people to the new stage, the future state, but sometimes you gotta hire new people.
Yep, no, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting next 6 to 12 months, that's for sure. So Catherine, thanks again so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you and having you part of the event in the fall, Digital Convergence Conference this fall.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It was really a pleasure to speaking with you.
My pleasure. Bye now.